All right, everyone. So this is the final episode in our series on justice for the unborn. We've done 3. This is the 3rd one and final one. And the next justice series that we're going to tackle is human trafficking. So we're going to be launching those in March. In this final episode for Justice for the Unborn, we are interviewing Juan Mendez. We'll explain who he is, but we're going to tackle the topic of whether or not rape and incest are justifiable reasons for an abortion. We're going to hear Juan's story, his mother's story. And then we'll also talk about why, just some reasons why the abortion rate in the Black community could be so much higher. So I hope you find this interesting, helpful, and I hope it leads to prayer. And also, Tom and I are going to be putting together a list, and we're going to post it. We're going to have a link attached that will take you to our blog that will just have a list of the practical ways that you can jump into this issue, that you can be a part of fighting for justice for the unborn. We're going to just pull out some of the practical things that we've learned and that we've taken hold of through these 3 interviews. So you can click that link after you watch this final interview. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Hold on, I got one that I got to escape it. Say hi, Pastor.
Hi there, sweetie. How are you?
Hey. Sorry about that.
All good. All good.
All right, my wife will get it. For this topic, is perfect. This is my little boy. Say hello. Say hi.
Hey, hello.
Dude, that's like a photo for a pregnancy center right there.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I got a couple more that can run in too. But.
Hey there.
Who's this character right here?
Yeah, they're so precious. That's why this means so much to me, because partly because how I know how precious they are. You know, they are a gift from God. I don't care.
Yeah.
The sleepless. There's nothing more like sleepless nights, adjusting schedule. You know, they're selfish as all adore children. But there's nothing more. I don't know that besides the Lord that I would gladly do all that for.
Yeah.
You know, like gladly, you know, wake up in the middle of the night for it. So it's amazing how God like wired us to appreciate, you know, them. So yeah, one of the reasons why, you know, I appreciate.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, God uses the family system. I can see it.
Yeah.
Just in my own life, in the lives around us, how He uses all the dynamics and moving parts.
Yeah.
All right, let us get us going here. Lord, we thank you for this time to again come together in your name, God, to pursue justice for the things that are on your heart, Lord, to talk about justice for the most vulnerable among us, Lord, the unborn. And we just pray for all the unborn, all the pregnant mothers, for the fathers of these babies, Lord, for anyone listening, that they might hear the injustice and how that hurts your heart and make it hurt theirs, Lord. And I thank you for our guest today, Lord, and just bless him with the words to communicate the message that you would have for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. All right. So we are here with Juan Mendez. I met Juan at the Open Door Pregnancy Center fundraiser, which took place at Allaire Farm this past fall. I met Juan for the first time there. We had a short conversation, but just in that conversation, I learned a little bit about his story, his background. Juan, you are the director of, what's your title at Keswick?
It's a director and / chaplain.
Okay.
So what that means is operationally, administratively, just kind of keeping the things going, keeping all the moving parts rolling. And as the chaplain, / chaplain, I do the one-on-one group counseling, education piece, as far as teaching, and just all kind of mixed bags in there. So yeah, it's kind of like a hybrid role.
Okay, and your training is in trauma, correct? PTSD.
Yeah, part of my training is trauma. Actually, my undergrad is in theology and also social work. So these type of topics hit home because advocacy is one of the things that I learned early on. And so, you know, Christian counseling. But my master's was focused on trauma and crisis counseling, meaning that when somebody in natural disaster, PTSD, and all kinds of traumatic events, like Superstorm Sandy, I would fly out or ride out to the location and try to get people stable, equalized, and things like that. Work right next with it would mean like working next to first responders, like police officers, dealing with them and our clients that are struggling with just traumatic events.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I mentioned to Tom we might want to have you on other when we tackle other justice topics in the future.
Yeah.
But we'll take it one at a time. So,
Sure.
with this topic, with justice for the unborn, so you practically you shared how, or just a network of people that you met and how you ended up at that pregnancy center banquet. But why are you passionate about this topic?
Well, to rewind and tape, just learning about True Life Church and Open Door. That I love the passion that they have. Like, it's contagious. It's something that is meaningful, and because there's a lot of people doing a lot of things and saying that they're doing a lot of things, but it's kind of cool to see people actually doing a thing. And so that drew me to the event that you guys were doing, because you actually were in the field doing what you say you guys were doing, and that was pretty cool. And so back to your question, you said passionate about the specific topic. Is that? Yeah. Well, I think we just started off with prayer, and the prayer, which was a beautiful prayer, it talked about your prayers. It said something about God's justice. And I just rested in that a little bit as we were praying, God's justice. And I really believe God has a value on life, maybe that humans don't even see at times. I believe God looks at life a lot different. God doesn't look at life like we do all the time, that how much productivity we could do. If I can add to the table, or if I can bring a lot of resources, or I'm talented or gifted, or a lot of times we kind of value life according to that. And God looks at life in a very, it's His life, and that's very, just listening to the prayer, it just really just reminded me of that. But moreover, I think about a voice for the voiceless. Like, many times, you and I, and Tom, we can, if we have a problem, we can share our problem. Like, we're men. We'll tell you how it is, right? I'm like, listen, I got a problem, and I'm going to tell you how the problem, and I'm going to try to fix it, right? But not everybody has a voice. The unborn, they don't have a voice. Children, they don't always have a voice. Culturally, I know that at time, and you would hear a statement like, when grown folks around, you should be saw, not heard. Like, just thinking through that, I'm like, well, wait a minute, why doesn't children have a voice?
Right.
And so the unborn doesn't have a voice. And so when I hear the passion of people who are speaking on the behalf of this precious life that God, not humans, God ordained, then that's contagious to me, as far as just thinking by just in a natural sense. So that's one part of what.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's deep stuff. And then your story in particular with this, you shared a little bit at the fundraiser. Briefly, you talked about your mother. I don't even know how we got into it. Like, literally, it was like a 3-minute conversation, and I'm hearing about your mom, and what she went through, and I don't want to tell your story. So
yeah. So I just told you how, like, circumstantially things that why I'm sold out to a topic like this, or this subject matter. But this runs deep personally as well. So even in pro-life movements, you'll hear statements like, well, we could make a law for incest, rape, and these heinous crimes that happen, and maybe if a baby is going to hurt their mother, they have a lot of times they have reasons why, right? And we hear them out. I'm not saying that we don't listen and hear, but it's interesting that the topic I keep hearing, like incest or rape, then we can justify some things. I don't know if you guys ever heard that, but
Sure.
I've heard that argument.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So for me, I sit back and listen to the argument. Not many people. Chris, I shared that story with you, but I don't really share that part of my story. I actually talked to my mom this morning, and we just kind of had a awesome time this morning talking about this specific story. I was telling her I get a chance to
Oh, wow.
share it, because this is part of our story, because you'll hear later that most of my story is addiction and drug, just in all those avenues. That's primarily what my story is about. But before all that, my story begins even as a dysfunctional family. My grandmother, who has some struggles with her husband at the time, maybe some alcoholism. I hear it all in that story. She leaves. She has my mother and her two brothers. She leaves. She gets married, and she starts a new family. She leaves my mother with my grandfather, and eventually she ends up moving back with her mother, and her mother's husband and their new children. 15 years old, 16 years old. In that time period, my mom and my mom's stepfather began to have a inappropriate relationship. She's a youngin', he's a grown person. Probably all kinds of laws against any of this.
Yeah.
And at 17, my mom has me, and they leave, and he takes her to Florida and has her down there. And she's still a young person. I mean, she had me at 17. So, and later on in counseling, we heard words like incest. I didn't know it as a young child raising. I thought it was a very weird dynamic, because all the family was together. I was like, wait a minute, this is my dad, but this is it was just always a weird dynamic. That's why I never spoke about it, because it was hard to describe to people. Well, wait a minute, this is your dad and this is your grandma's husband, because he ends up going back to my grandmother. So it's just a weird dynamic. So I never really explained the story a lot, because it gets confusing. But this specific thing is that you have a 17-year-old girl who words like rape, incest, all these things were brought up in a counseling session. A 17-year-old girl. This would have been she could have went to many individuals and said, you know what should I do? And probably you'll have people on both sides of the coin say, yeah, you're probably justified if you want to end the pregnancy. But that sweet little 17-year-old, not perfect, confused 17-year-old, decided no. And she wasn't a Christian, but she said, this life is precious to God. She actually found a Catholic church. I found the certificate. Catholic church, they have a big old nice certificate. She saved it. She actually took me down to the Catholic church at 6 months and kind of sprinkled me and named my middle name is Jesus. And
wow.
as I know, right? This you can't make this stuff up. And whatever that start and beginning of life happened, God was still in the midst of that. Like in the midst of that heinous crimes, because that's what it was. It was crime, heinous acts. God never left me in the middle of that. So when I hear these topics come up and I hear people say, you know what, we can excuse some of these areas, I'm like, yeah, I think God still can work with those areas as well. And so, that's why it's personal to me when I hear these topics, because she could have did anything. And I have a wonderful sister who got saved as well, and she's just, her and I were under the same situation, and God is it's amazing how God is using that young lady for his kingdom. So
Wow.
yeah, we all both came from the same situation.
Wow. How old were you when you found out that history?
Wow. You know, here's the other part of that. When you live in culturally, now I can just speak culturally, what's happening under your roof stays under your roof. And nobody never talked much about it. Obviously now we're more targeted in things like this. I don't know if it was always the case back there. And I don't know culturally, did we share as much as we should have back then? And so just, fast forward to we're thinking 2021, 2020, and we're talking 1974, 75. People probably just had different mindsets when it came to that. Now, even as growing up, I just remember the hush rule under some of the guidelines and just the unwritten rules, we would call it.
Yeah. Did that mean that you grew up without a father figure, or was your step grandfather a father figure in your life?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. He's Latino. My dad comes from Puerto Rico, and what I've noticed about them, they kind of stick around with the children. Like this just was a natural thing that they did, good, bad, and indifferent situations. They kind of hung around, and I noticed he hung around close enough with his children, and so yeah, I believe he began to change over the years because I had a lot of good experience as an adult with him. So, people change over time, and as they get older, and he was an older gentleman. And so I had an amazing later lifetime with him, watching him, work and provide for the family, watching him grow older. And so I have a good experience with. Now, I don't know anything about the 46 years ago version of him, right? I don't know that version. When I got to him, something happened in his own life where he was already changing, and
right. Well, that's interesting. So not only did God redeem a pregnancy when you were born, and you had life, and your sister had life out of basically an incestuous relationship, an inappropriate, illegal relationship. But God redeemed even your relationship with the man.
Yeah.
The
amazing. Yeah.
perpetrator, quote, so he wasn't the evil, that many people would picture.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. Probably something should be in a book or something. But yeah, he changed, and that's how people can change, right?
Yeah.
Things can happen. People can change. So yeah, he raised me up. I remember sitting and having long talks with him, and just work ethic. I get a work ethic. He had a great work ethic. He demonstrated that. Put his boots on and went to work every day. And so yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, years later, I got to see that part of it. So it's pretty cool to see that.
Is he still around? Is he still alive?
No, he passed away a long time ago. Actually, he passed away around the same time I came to Christ. So so I came to the Lord, and God was becoming my real father, actually. And early, I mean, literally, I think it was weeks later, he took my natural father, left me. I felt like he took my natural father, and I was kind of angry at God, immature, angry. I come to you, and then this is what you do to me, and so yeah, he took him a long time. It might have been over 20 years ago now. So
wow.
Hence that he was an older gentleman anyway. So
yeah. Well, so to summarize your opinion, when somebody tries to say that rape or incest is an exception, and that's a time when abortion is justified, you would say no.
Yeah. Life and productive life can come out of just even some of the heinous things in life, and we know that because even in general, like, all of us have levels of stuff going on. The world has evil all in it, and God redeems these things in many areas. So yeah, similarly, yeah, you'll see that. I think about Jesus came from different lineages, and it wasn't always the greatest people that he came from if you look at his history. And yet the Messiah came, and we all know who he was, right? So
that's true. You have how many kids?
I have 4 children.
And what about your sister? Does she have kids?
Yeah, my sister has 2 boys. Yeah.
Okay, so your your mother got 6 grandkids out of
just us. Yeah, she has more. My mother ended up having more children, having a beautiful, got remarried, had a beautiful family. Yeah, she has not remarried. She got married, and she raised her family in Christ now. It's all cool. We all came to the Lord different times, and so yeah, we have offsprings, and God is we're raising our children in the Lord, and she's raising her new children in the Lord, and she's an amazing woman. So yeah, my sister. It's interesting. All 3 of us got saved differently, and it just we come together and we just have just some of the sweetest fellowships because we gotta laugh like God saved us, really. Like look at us, and we just laugh and we get together, and it's really special.
Wow,
it's really special.
That and that came out of what? So 2 pregnancies that many people in the world would say would have told your mom, abort these babies. You're justified in doing so. She kept both of you and got 6 grandkids just out of you 2, let alone the other she has.
Yeah.
So that's just a further picture of God's redeeming power.
Yeah, she even got great grandkids because my sister's boy has 3 beautiful children.
Oh, wow.
And I have a son, I have a son that has a little daughter now, about a year old, 18 months old. So even grandbabies are coming out of there now. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, God sees the bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
When he sees life, he sees it a lot different than we see it at time. And yeah, nobody probably would have pictured all that happening.
Yeah.
46 years ago when this was going on.
Oh yeah.
And Juan, if I could jump in here and get your perspective on something, you and Chris are making a good point there about how people use the uncommon occurrences of an incestuous relationship or a rape as justification for abortions, and honestly as a proxy argument for abortions in general. And just wanted to show you something here. Just going to share my screen a little bit. We had mentioned this in a previous podcast, but just the rarity of those events as it relates to overall abortions. So I'm just going to share this in a second. You guys should be able to see my screen in a moment.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. Yeah.
All right. So just to go down to the sort of hot button topic there of rape and incest. If you see those charts, and those are numbers from a few years back, but they hold about steady. Rape itself makes up less than 1% of abortions as reason for abortion, and incest is less than 0.5%. So together, those 2 things that people use as exceptions to try to loop in the rest make up less than 1.5% of the total reasons for abortion. As you see, most of them there are lifestyle and economic choices for which women choose to get abortions. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So and I've heard an argument, actually Ben Shapiro give this argument to someone who asked him a question at a speech, who brought up the rape and incest and said, I'll have the rape and incest conversation with you on two conditions. 1, we admit that rape and incest is extremely rare, which this chart shows it does. And 2, you admit that all other abortion is bad, and we'll just talk about rape and incest. So people try to use it as a proxy to sort of loop in all other reasons for abortion to, if you have to, you make that exception so you can't ban the others. But for someone who's had personal experience with that, how does it sort of feel to see that, what a small percentage that is in relation to how big a deal people make out of it?
Yeah. Tom, I'd like to respond a little bit to that. I think the world has to find, I think we have to find I think they find ways to kind of justify, because everybody has to go to sleep at night on their pillows. Everybody has to reason with their own thoughts. Everybody has to kind of think through their own consciousness. And so if we bring up heinous things like that, it's easier to justify my point and position, no matter how small the numbers is. And so long as I have those 2, I can rest on my pillow at night, because knowing that I believe in something because of the heinousness. And so I think we try to hold on to kind of, even if the numbers low, I believe in this because these heinous crimes are committed, and we need to have out for, these women that are struggling, these families that struggle. So, because, these kind of convictions, whether you're a believer or not believer, people do have convictions and consciences and things like that. I believe that's part of it. And so I just wanted to throw that out there when I saw the numbers. Yeah. We try to find we find reason to kind of compete and argue and reason with ourselves. No,
that's so true.
Or I was my wife, when we was doing the ultrasound, right? I always listen for stuff. And the lady, the doctor, or the technician was searching my wife's stomach. She was like, "Oh, here's your baby right here." I said, "Wait a minute, this is 4 weeks. You just called this a baby." I said, "Tell me more." And she said, "Oh, well, the fetus." I said, No. You called this a baby." And so it's cool, like, to hear, the medical field. That was a medical field. I don't even know who her beliefs or system are when she's in the medical field. She didn't call it anything else but a baby. And I called on to that. So the argument that when life conceives or not conceive was kind of knocked off by their own medical profession in that moment. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and to sort of piggyback on that, if I could, your point, I think, is well made about people clinging to one aspect of an argument to sort of justify their approval of the rest of it. Right? Clinging on to that one emotionally gripping portion to justify how they feel about the rest of it. How do you feel about the language that they use around it? And we talked a little bit with this in our doctor at the last at the last podcast, but people using things like reproductive rights and women's health as euphemisms for abortion, and even the old arguments like clump of cells, clump of tissue, to not admit that it is a baby, like you're just saying, a baby that's being killed. So the question I would have is, if you have to euphemize something, if you have to make up a saying for it as opposed to calling it plainly what it is in order to stomach the position that you support on it, then why do you support that position? So the point you make is well made. And do you think it extends to the way we talk about it, not only whether or not we support it, the way we talk about it?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I just even look at, I have a kennel, a popcorn zoo down the street. And even when one of those puppies are pregnant, you see the nursing mom, starting to take care of themselves, and the vets are in there taking care of, the pups are not here yet, but they already treating the mom and the pups. So, like, even in that regards, they know before those pups come out that there's life inside the stomach. So, it's really interesting how, you can see the contradictions in some of these regards.
Yeah. Well, Missy even pointed that out. Like, most women want to be mothers. They're wired to nurture. They're wired for that. But once fear kicks in, the fear of loss, the fear of my life is ruined, the shame, that once fear kicks in, it's you look to justify. You grab hold of, oh, it's just a lump of tissues. Yeah, that's right. It's just tissues. It's just tissues. It's just a fetus. It's not life yet. But and I've never been in that position. So I'm but based on what Missy said, I can understand it more now. That women are wired for that, but there's this combating fear that makes you kind of shut that off, or justify shutting that off.
That's good.
Juan, let's turn a corner and talk about race, if we can, for a moment.
Okay.
I put that in the email to you, just letting you know we wanted to touch on that, because we talked about it in the first week with Missy, which you watched that interview with Missy, and I'm gonna have Tom show his couple slides in a moment, but the abortion rate in the Black community, as you know, is much higher, and I'm wondering if you have any insight as a Black man, why that is, what the risk factors might be that create such a disproportionate you know, just a disparity in the numbers for the Black community? And are there systemic issues that make the Black community more susceptible to believing that abortion is their only option? So before you comment on that, Tom, why don't you show those slides again?
Yeah, I'm just going to bring my screen back up for a moment here. We're going to, should be able to see that. And if I could, just bringing it into perspective, when I was talking with Missy, we had talked about how the total number of abortions in the country since Roe v. Wade decision was made is now over 61 million babies aborted since 1973. And of those, it's not on here, but of those, over 20 million of those have been Black babies. So about 13.5% of the population of the female population is Black, and they account for about a third or a little bit more than a third of the abortion. So a bit disproportionate to their population percentage. And if we look at the breakdown there for, for every 1,000 live births, non-Hispanic Black women have about 401 abortions, whereas when you compare it to other ethnic groups, it's higher than all of them, but specifically comparing it to non-Hispanic white women, they have 109 per 1,000 births. So that's basically a 4-to-1 ratio. They seek abortions at a rate 4 times non-Hispanic white women. And the numbers are really staggering in New York City, our neighbor to the north there. If you look at those numbers between 2012 and 2016, Black mothers in New York City terminated far more pregnancies than they actually gave birth to. So there are more pregnancies than live births over a multi-year period amongst the Black community in New York City. And that's from their own city health department. So it's clearly a disproportionate racial breakdown when it comes to abortion.
That's sad. Yeah. When you put those numbers up, I just started thinking about all of those lives. 20 million. I mean, 20 million people can change a community, change a culture. 20 million. Yeah, it's a huge number.
Yeah.
And that's just on record. Obviously, not everything is recorded. And that's a sad thing. There's some things that goes on. I've been in a part of a dark world. I wasn't raised in a clean cut type of environment. And so I've seen some other stuff as well happen. I think when you think about the African American community in general, I used to do ministry in urban, what we call urban neighborhood. You might hear the words the hood. Back in the day, we used words like the ghetto. It just was low income areas, and in those areas, and as I think about when you have a lot of dysfunction, when you don't have like solid family system structures, a lot of things can happen in there. A lot of things are overlooked in those environments. When I think about the African American community, obviously we see a lot of addictions. Drug and substance abuse is all through the community. You see a lot of fatherlessness. We all know that fathers play a huge role in the family. My wife and I talk about that all the time. Something happens to one of our daughters, and they get pregnant because we have 2 daughters, and beautiful daughters, and we just thought about like how much we would support them in any way possible. But you take the father out the home, it changes that dynamics, and so you have a bunch of single mothers raising single mothers, and life doesn't have like a lot of value to it. And so if you have a lot of people who have like these unwanted pregnancies, oh man, here I go pregnant again. It's easy to probably say, you know what? And I think it's an education piece too as well. Open door pregnancy works in this area in Tom's River. I was thinking about when I lived in a project for a while. I had my son, and we kind of lived in a low income area, buildings stacked in buildings, and I don't remember anybody sharing or talking about abortions, non-abortions, or anything. It just was not a conversation. Somebody would come, oh, do you want to keep your baby? And do you want to put your baby up for the educationally? I don't think that type of, there's so much other life-sustaining issues out there that you don't even hear those type of topics. You don't hear of an open door in the hood, right? You don't just typically don't hear, like, you don't even see the Catholics out there so I'm seeing the numbers, right? So, I lived in a community where there was all African Americans and Hispanics, right? Nobody out there, was a different color at that point. But and if we know the numbers, you wouldn't see nobody protesting about the unborn out there. It just didn't happen. You just didn't know about it. And so I think education is a piece. I think about mass incarceration.
Yeah.
If you count all the individuals that's away, if you take that many men out of the community, I'm not saying why they're incarcerated, because I don't have the statistics, but if you take that many men out of the community, obviously God uses many men in different ways. And so numbers of men are out of their community, sons, fathers that are away. Mass incarceration is one of those things I think about. Just the family system in general. I think here's the great thing. I believe that we're turning a curve a little bit in family dynamics. I see a lot of more fathers just stepping up in their roles. I see lately I've seen in church too as well, whole families that come into church. And so it's kind of cool to see like a turn to happen. But yeah, up until now, and I think even moving in, and I think it's sometimes more of a social economical thing. So that don't mean if it's white or black. Socially economical, if you think about it, like people in just poor communities, they just have they're just surviving. And so sometimes it's just a survival mechanism. Like, I can't have no more kids. I can't even take care of my life or even the life around me. So it could be just not a white or black thing at that point. It just could be socioeconomical, which brings another issue altogether. So yeah, there's a lot of things that could be a trauma. Like I said in the beginning, that some people have traumatic events, hear about bad stories, passing off bad stories about raising children, about if we don't appreciate each other, right? If I'm hearing all day long from a single mother that how hard it is to raise me, and how she wish she could have did something different with her life, why would I want to have a child, right? It's just not encouraged, as much in those areas. And I'm not saying I'm the master of knowing all these things, but these are just some things that I think about as I look at it in a whole. So just a couple things.
Yeah. That's a lot right there. That's a lot right there. Tom, any thoughts?
Dynamics, and thank again for making the point about the fatherlessness being a factor. As we spoke to Missy about, a lot of times people try to keep men out of the abortion talk altogether, saying basically they have no say, or there's they can't speak about it, doesn't involve them. But you're saying it very much involves men.
Yeah, no, just what you said, that last point about if a single mom is sort of complaining or going on with her kids about how hard it is. Yeah, why would they, if they got pregnant, why would they? Well, I saw my mom always hurting and complaining, so why am I going to keep, like, that makes sense. Never thought of that.
Yeah, we just kind of pass off these issues, many issues. I think many, not just African American, just dysfunctions that, generational dysfunctions we just keep passing down. And this just happened to be one of those things. I had an incident, specific incident, and I hear this incident often, is that to get out of the urban community, you got to go to school, you got to play basketball, you got to play football, you got to go get an education to get out the hood. School is not like an option for some of these people, right? And then if you get a young lady, and I've known this happen personally, young lady who's on her way to college, and right before she gets to college, something happens. what do you do?
Yeah.
Right? Unwanted pregnancy. And so, yeah, those things are common.
Yeah.
And probably why you have those big numbers like that, because these unwanted pregnancies.
And why do you think there's not, like where you were living with your son, why do you think there's not a pregnancy center going in there setting up shop?
I mean, there's probably a lot of opinions on that.
Yeah.
A lot of opinions. All kinds of things ran through my head. I couldn't really give a valuable opinion that's backed up with sustenance and research. That's a good question, because you caught me out there with that one. But I have a lot of thoughts that I've heard across the. Okay, can I give you one opinion that I've heard?
Please.
You will hear comments like this: is if you know for a fact, and this is just statistically, that African American men commit crimes. African Americans are the highest on social on welfare system. You hear that they don't add as much to the table. I don't know if everybody values the life of an African American equally as, and that's when you get all the social justice things that come in. And I don't know everybody's personal opinions about that, but I know that I've heard that before. And then it stats. At one point, it was the argument that cops are racially profiling African American men and pulling them over. I'll give you an example of that. And I talked to a person about that, and what they said was, well, if 1/3 of African American men doesn't have license, then it ain't words for profiling, it's statistics, right? And so what they were saying is, I'm looking at the numbers and I'm going to make a judgment based on the numbers and then pull them over as well. So back to this specific thing. You guys are people, guys, men that are in the Lord. So you guys' heart has, has been guided by God. Not everybody is like you guys. And so there are many counterparts that probably won't say it, but do not value the life of. And so let them handle themselves. Let them work themselves out, and however best they can. So I think the value of African American life is not as valued. I mean, like I said, I've never seen a pro-life in the urban communities. So I could find an abortion clinic very easy. I could find somewhere to do abortion very easy. Simple. We all knew where they were. I wasn't always raised in Christ, so I was on the other side of the fence for a long time. We all knew where the abortion clinic was.
Yeah.
The girls went down there, and it wasn't even a big issue. It's like, oh yeah, you're going down to such and such to, but now that I think about it, I don't know if I ever heard of pro-life clinic or facility in those areas. So
I told you guys, I was on a board meeting just now with the pregnancy center in Toms River, and one thing they were talking about, one of the goals is to have, because they have stats every year that we can look at, and it's mostly white women coming in, and statistically nationwide, we see the stats that Tom just showed, that there should be more, should be seeing more minorities, but we're not. And they were wondering, is it geography? Is it the fact that we're in Toms River? Is it the fact that we have a mostly white staff and white volunteers, and black folks are like, I ain't going in there. They don't know me. They don't know where I'm coming from. They said to me, I told them I was interviewing you. They said, well, ask them, like, what can we do to reach so that the black community know that we're here and we're here for them and that we want to support them. And I know you don't have a, just one formulaic answer, but this is helpful to talk about.
Yeah, that's cool. It's good to have somebody that look like them when they come into a clinic. It's just something. It's a code. It's like obviously Toms River geographically is what it is. We even see that in addiction recovery. Similar things. It's just like if I'm walking through a mall, right, in Ocean County, right, it's 300 Caucasians and other. If I see another black guy in the mall, we simultaneously do this. It's like okay, I see you, brother. And we don't even say anything. We don't even know each other. But it's good to see a face that sometimes looks like you maybe understand your struggle. In addiction, we call it peer-to-peer. You can have a very educated doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, licensed counselors say a thing, right? They read it in a book. But in recovery, peer-to-peer is always good to have somebody that that understand it from your level and can speak the same language as. And so I believe it's important to kind of have, some of those things. Not saying you should change your whole dynamic because of that, but it's good to have like multicultural. Like if you had somebody that's bilingual, that can speak to the Spanish community. It's always good to when somebody comes in, because my dad is Hispanic. There's nothing like when two Hispanics get together and start speaking Spanish in a separate continent. It's like they come alive. So yeah, that's just a little bit of demographics in there. Just seeing a face that looks familiar, similar, it automatically probably think, okay, you know what, he knows the struggle a little bit. And so, yeah. And I used to go with, you guys are great CMA guys. I know you know the church Building on a Rock. You ever heard of them?
Sure.
Yeah, Building on a Rock was doing something in years ago in Asbury. And you know what Asbury looks like, right? And so they invited me over to be part of the buffer, to be part of the community, because I can walk right into projects. I was just with them just to kind of like build a bridge in some of these areas. So yeah, it's the nature of human beings, right?
Mm.
That's good, man.
And just to piggyback off that sort of geography and demographics of it, I mean, generally you're going to have higher concentration of abortion providers, Planned Parenthoods, abortion clinics in high population centers.
Okay.
Frequently urban areas. All right. And frequently those are the areas with higher concentrations of minority populations, including Black populations. So availability, I think, is a factor. Like you were saying, you can easily find where to go to get an abortion. Might be hard to find where to go to talk to somebody who's not, in the business of abortion as a pregnancy center. So do you think that the sort of the concentration of certain minority groups in cities and urban areas where there will be more likely to have abortion facilities plays a role in it? Or you just think that the abortion facilities are there because there's more people there?
Well, sad thing is, healthcare is always disparate too. You want to talk about disparity. If you look at healthcare, different treatment in healthcare is also one of the things that you can look into. Probably good stats in there, just about how the different care, like family healthcare versus somebody who has a great job and is provided. You know what? And I've learned it in addiction field. Medical also is a big money maker. And now I don't know how much these gals get in the medical field for how many they can conduct, how many abortions they can conduct. I don't know medically or financially, is it financially supporting the medical field in certain ways that I don't even think of. But it's interesting that you're saying that, location wise, that they're in those areas. And maybe part of it is big business. Maybe the medical field, because I know for a fact that I pay out of pocket medical. And if I go have a procedure, they'll give me a giant bill. They bill the medical insurance a giant bill. But when I tell them I'm self-pay, they drop the bill down substantially. But if you got some kind of insurance or family insurance that's paying for these things, who's getting rich on the other end of these procedures? Somebody is benefiting financially. So I don't know number wise how to figure that out, but I've learned in the medical field, there's somebody's pockets are being benefiting from some of these medical procedures. So, like I said, I don't want to make assumptions, but if I'm hearing you right, they're positioned in these locations for a reason.
I mean, it's a point well taken about the, I'm in the medical industries. I know it's a business. I mean, there's no
Okay.
doubt about it. You're going to get a lot more patients if you're in a higher population area, potentially, than if you're, out in the sticks, with the sparse population. So there is that. And I think Missy, if you saw her talk a couple weeks ago, made a good point that, Planned Parenthood, the biggest abortion provider in our nation, is not a benevolent outreach association. Like, in addition to, hundreds of millions of dollars in government funding, they also charge for their services. I mean, this is a business that they're in the and they're the sort of biggest company in the business of abortion.
Yeah. So there's a financial aspect to it as well. So.
Cool, man. Thank you so much, Juan. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing.
All right. No problem. Thank you for having me.
As I told you on the phone, this will be sent out next week. So if there's anything between now and then, we always try to edit it down to about under an hour. So if there's anything in particular that you want to have cut out, sliced out, just let us know. Yeah, we want you to feel comfortable with what goes out there. So
yeah, you guys do what you got to do. I'm fine with it. My story, I when I came to Christ, I said I'm going to share my story. People can sort out whether they want to be around me or whatever they want, opinions or judgment. Or I just have no problem with sharing for the kingdom reasons. There's people in that have or are struggling with similar things, and I don't mind putting mine out there. I don't mind sharing it at any time to share the redeeming quality of Jesus, because Jesus redeemed this, and he's still in the redeeming business. So. You can give me a little bit more hair. You can, give me a full goatee if you want to edit, but as far as what I share, I talked to my mom because I was the only key player. My father has passed away. So, I always like to kind of talk a little bit about to the person, because there's another figure, is another person involved. So I talked to her this morning and she was like cool with it. And that's it. So.
Okay,
cool. We're all good.
And what's her name, Juan?
My mom's name is Bertha.
Bertha.
Yeah.
All right, let me close in prayer. And God, I give thanks for Bertha. I give thanks for her boldness, her courage to make a hard decision. What was probably a scary decision for her at the time, 16, 17-year-old, choosing life for two times. Thank you that you have blessed Bertha. You have blessed her with a huge family. You've blessed her with kids and grandkids and great grandchildren. And Lord, just thank you that not only did you give her physical life, but you also brought spiritual life, new life, born again life to her children, to Juan, to his sister, to her. Lord, I just thank you for that. And I thank you for more of those kinds of stories. I pray that you would use this podcast and just the Open Door Pregnancy Center, Solutions Pregnancy, all the pregnancy centers, Lord, just the churches, Lord, that you would use the efforts to support life, to bring about more stories like you did for Bertha. You're an amazing God, and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.